Jake, the train car conductor, sat in the police station, nervously rubbing his hands together as he recounted how he was making his usual rounds through the car. His narrative reached the vestibule, and he fell silent. It was difficult for him to talk about the moment when he saw the babies lying in a tote bag in the vestibule. At that moment, the conductor didn't know the full story of how the children had come to be left alone in the train car. Nor did he know that in the office across the hall, a young woman was giving her testimony. "Go on, Jake," the investigator prompted. "Oh, yes, right," the conductor said, rubbing his temples. Meanwhile, in the next office, a young woman was crying as she recounted her own story. But her lamentation was interrupted by the investigator. "Amanda, stick to the point." "I can't. I need to tell you everything so that you understand me. Please, listen to me. I beg you." Investigator Rick wearily rubbed the bridge of his nose. He was tired that day, but it was necessary to take the statements to close the case about the infants. However, after several stories from the young woman, the law enforcement officer forgot about his fatigue. Rick listened with a shudder to Amanda's account. He had seen a lot in his life, being well over 50 years old, but the young woman's story shook him. "You know, I couldn't trust anyone, and maybe that was a mistake. But the thing is, I grew up in an orphanage, and as you understand, the conditions there are harsh. We, as teenagers, weren't taught good behavior." Amanda paused in her story, asking for a glass of water. The investigator handed her a cup and asked her to continue after she drank. "I wasn't an unattractive child, but that didn't help me become someone's foster daughter. So I grew up within the walls of the orphanage," Amanda continued. The young woman explained that after leaving the orphanage, she was practically left on her own. The government provided her with a one-room apartment, and she had to figure out the rest of her life by herself. However, at that time, being still naive, she was thinking about how she should live. In her mind, she thought about not eating cheap food like in the orphanage and not wearing hand-me-downs. At this moment, the woman paused again, wiping away a tear. Rick saw that it was hard for Amanda to recall her past, but he needed to reconstruct the events and was also interested in her fate, so he asked her to continue. "I beg you, please continue. I know it's hard, but you have to say it." Yes, I will. Can I have a minute?" Amanda asked, wiping away a tear. Sure." And she continued her story, no longer trying to hide the tears that were pouring from her eyes. The investigator handed her a handkerchief. Amanda blotted her eyes and continued her story. "I met a man as soon as I was on the outside. I'm sorry for my thinking, but at that moment I felt like I was in a paradise world where I didn't have the admonishments of teachers and mentors who really got on my nerves." Amanda sobbed. She was having a hard time remembering. The investigator didn't rush her as he realized that childhood spent in an orphanage leaves its imprints in the mind, and so does coming out of it. Rick himself came from an orphanage. Perhaps because of this, he was deeply moved by the plight of this young woman who was genuinely crying and just asking to be heard. All she wanted was to be heard. "Go on, Amanda," the investigator said, fumbling with his pen. The woman's story was banal, but not to Rick, who had learned a lot in his practice. He just listened. The fire in his soul was touchingly kindled for this, in principle, silly girl. "I met a man who was 9 years older than me. His name is Martis, and in my opinion, he was extraordinarily attentive. At least, that's how it seemed to me at the time. He didn't immediately ask for intimacy, as often happens when men meet provincial girls." "Did you consider yourself a provincial girl?" Rick asked. "Please, don't interrupt. Let me tell everything in order." "Okay, I won't," the investigator replied. Amanda wiped her eyes once again and continued. She narrated that Martis's attentions were different, marked by elegance. The man was not pushy in their relationship, but he showed signs of affection, making it clear that he cared for her. This circumstance convinced the girl to enter into an intimate relationship with him. Amanda realized she was in love with Martis and wanted to spend the rest of her life with him. She couldn't keep her thoughts to herself and told her chosen one about it. Martis, I love you more than life. You are the most precious person to me. Amanda's beloved smiled, stroked her blonde curls, then turned away and asked, Would you still love me if you knew the whole truth? You're scaring me. Just a moment ago, you were talking about love, and now you're scared. Sorry, she blurted out awkwardly. Do you want to know everything about me? Yes, Amanda replied firmly. She was afraid of her beloved's revelations, but was ready to hear the whole truth about him. Martis calmly revealed that he was married and had a 3-year-old son. The young woman didn't expect this and just wanted to interrupt her beloved, but he gestured for her to be silent. The man stood up, walked to the window, was silent for a while, and then continued. He said he hadn't married for love, just that fate had provided a convenient opportunity. Martis met a girl named Stacy, who was the chosen one of his friend. This girl became interested in him. The man fell silent again. Why did you stop? Amanda cried out through her tears. At that moment, it seemed to her that her whole life was falling apart. Her beloved stood beside her, who was not free and, in her opinion, had betrayed their relationship. The young woman buried her face in the pillow and wept desperately. Martis turned to Amanda and said, Are you ready to listen further? Yes, I want to know everything, so there are no misunderstandings between us, Amanda said through her tears. The man continued speaking while the woman, pressing her hands to her face, listened. He explained that Stacy was a spoiled person and liked when all her whims were fulfilled. And the girl's whim was Martis himself. She wanted only his attention. At that time, the young man was flattered by Stacy's attention because the person was quite wealthy, as her father was the owner of a chain of stores. In Martis's opinion, courting Dylan's daughter was only to his advantage. He believed that shuri-muri with Stacy will bring influence in society and life in the future without thinking about money. In this regard, Martis, without thinking about the fact that the girl met with his friend, easily beat her away from a friend. And what followed was intimacy, as is often the case with young people. At these words Martis smiled and looked at Amanda meaningfully. The woman exclaimed, Don't look at me like that, I'm not that kind of person. I didn't mean anything by it. Go on. Okay, but don't interrupt me again. I won't. I won't. Martis cleared his throat and continued. He said that 5 months later, Stacy told him she was pregnant. The news was happy for her and her parents, but not for him. At that moment, the man just wanted to live large, because Stacy's father catered to his daughter's every whim. If she wanted to dine at a fancy restaurant, she was welcome. If she wanted to go to the seaside, she could get tickets to the resort. Martis was a potential future son-in-law for Stacy's dad, Dylan. There was a solution to this problem, Amanda said. I told her not to interrupt. Martis stared thoughtfully at the nightstand where the flowers were in a vase. There was a pause that was not interrupted by the two men. After a few minutes, the man continued the narrative. I told Stacy I wasn't ready to be a daddy, but she took my statement in stride, and afterward complained to her father that I was rejecting her. Then we had a nasty conversation with her dad. Trust me, Dylan is not the last man in town. He owns a chain of stores. You realize how powerful that is? Not really, But you go on." The man poured water into a glass, took a sip, and continued. He said that Stacy's father would do everything to ensure that his persona could not live peacefully in this town. At first, Martis did not believe him, but over time, he realized that Dylan would do anything for his daughter. Proof of this was the dismissal of his mother, who worked in Stacy's father's store, and then the framing of his younger brother in a botched robbery. "But maybe these are all just coincidences," Amanda exclaimed. Marta smiled and then stepped out onto the balcony, taking a cigarette with a lighter. The young woman sat in silence. She was afraid to hear more, but at the same time wanted to know everything about her beloved's fate. The man returned, looked at Amanda, and asked, "Shall we continue, or maybe we shouldn't?" "Go on." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Her beloved sat down beside her and began to speak again. What Amanda heard was incomprehensible to her. She knew she lived in a complicated world dominated by money and power. However, she had never been involved in such situations. Horrible images painted themselves in her mind. She imagined her beloved in difficult life situations, but still found no justification for him. Her thoughts were interrupted by Martis's story. "What circumstances?" "Dylan himself told me about my mother's dismissal, about my brother being framed, and he added that this was just the beginning of my troubles. I had to accept my own helplessness since my mother was our source of income. My father had abandoned us long ago. I got involved with a girl whom I gambled with in my fate. That is, I considered her a lottery ticket. I'm talking about Stacy. You see, I didn't work but just wasted my life. My brother was a teenager at that time. He was 14 years old." After saying this, Martis covered his face with his hands. Amanda saw that the memories were hard for him, so she didn't even try to stop her beloved. The young woman quietly waited for him to continue. After a few minutes of silence, he went on. He said he agreed to marry Stacy. Soon, the young couple had their firstborn, a son named Leon, after Stacy's grandfather, Dylan. Marta spoke of his son with reverence, and Amanda sensed that her beloved cherished his child. His speech afterward was dedicated to his son, Leon, whom he spoke of with tenderness. Suddenly, Martis fell silent, then asked, "Do you want me to show you Leon?" "What did you call him?" "That's what I call my son. He is a precious child in my life." "But he's not from the woman you love," Amanda said. She couldn't understand how a child could become beloved if he was initially rejected. Her entire worldview resisted understanding the essence, specifically the logic of her chosen one. She didn't want to understand it, as her thoughts held different concepts of love. Amanda believed that love was the mutual understanding between two people. But the situation with Martis completely distorted her imagination. She sat there, unable to comprehend. Then she bitterly said, "Show me." The man went to his jacket, took out a wallet, and pulled out a photograph. He handed the photo to Amanda, saying, "Look." The young woman looked at the photo. There was a small child playing with a ball, smiling and barely standing on his feet. Amanda asked, "How old is he here?" "A year and a half, but he's older now." Amanda pondered about her chosen one, his fate, and the child. She found it difficult. She realized that Martis, whom she loved, could not leave his family. The young woman gathered her courage and asked the main question that interested her. "And what about us? Don't you understand that we have no future together?" Her chosen one answered with a question. "What do you mean, no?" "But I love you," Amanda exclaimed. Her exclamation was met with the man leaving. Without saying goodbye, he gathered his things and left the apartment without a word. The young woman burst into tears. At that moment, she thought it was the most horrible day of her life. But later, she realized that this fragment of her life was not the turning point in her fate. Here, Amanda fell silent, and the investigator had to bring her back to reality. He stood up, poured a glass of water, and handed it to her with the words, "Drink, calm down, and let's continue. We need to finish today. Please understand." Yes, just a second," Amanda said, snapping back to attention. "What happened next?" Rick asked. Amanda looked at the investigator with a tired gaze and continued. She no longer felt the initial emotions, so she spoke quite calmly, as it seemed to Rick. The young woman wiped away her tears and continued. In a more composed manner, she recounted that Martis's departure at that moment made her understand that her beloved would not be with her. However, she had hoped for something entirely different. Amanda accepted that her chosen one was married and could not leave his family. She was grateful to him because he did not abandon her, which to her meant he loves. Amanda was willing to become his mistress. But everything changed in an instant when she learned the news. The young woman found out she was pregnant. At that moment, she thought she could change her fate. She believed that Martis, upon learning about the child, would want to be with her and the baby. Amanda joyfully shared the news with her beloved. "You won't believe it, but I have something to make you happy." "What exactly?" "I'm expecting a child." Unexpected news. "Aren't you happy?" "Didn't expect it." "Let's discuss it later," her beloved said. At that moment, Amanda thought she had stunned her beloved, so she did not expect such a reaction from him. The young woman was confused. These were not the words she wanted to hear from Martis. The man saw that his chosen one was upset, so he approached her and said, "Understand, dear. You caught me off guard with the news, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy." "Really?" "Of course, really. I love you," Martis said in return. Amanda looked at the investigator, who was gazing out the window. The young woman hesitantly asked Rick, "Do you judge me?" "I'm not a judge to judge, but I suggest we continue about the children." "Yes, of course." The interlocutor adjusted a stray lock of hair and began her story anew. She told that the pregnancy was uncomplicated. After some time, she found out that she would have not one child, but two. Amanda was doubly happy because, in this case, Martis would find a way to divorce Stacy and be only with her. When her chosen one was informed of this news, he was at a loss. He had thought that he could somehow support one child with his mistress, but three would be difficult. Martis directly asked his beloved, "Let's give up one." "What do you mean, give up?" "I mean it literally. Understand, you don't work, and I can't leave my family." "But I thought you would leave Stacy and be only with us." "I can't do that." "Then live with them, and we'll be on our own." "I'm not giving up any child." "I hate you," Amanda angrily retorted. After this conversation, she kicked Martis out and forced herself to forget about him. They did not communicate for a long time. The young woman did not know at that time that Martis had tried to leave his family. The man spoke to his wife and said, "Stacy, I have a woman, and I love her. As you loved, you will fall out of love. She is expecting twins. I can't abandon them to their fate." "Well, even so. I can make you happy too because we are expecting an addition to our family as well." "You mean we're having a child?" "A girl will be. I suspected for a long time that you had a woman on the side, but I thought you would get over it. However, you went too far in your relationship. You'll have to choose either us or that orphan girl. So, you knew everything? Martis did not expect that his wife had been aware of his affair. At that moment, the man realized that even if he chose to stay with Stacy, his father-in-law would not leave Amanda and the children alone. He was completely sure that his wife had already informed her father about his escapades. And if she hadn't, she would definitely tell him. Martis sat down on a chair, exhausted. His thoughts drifted to how he would explain everything to his beloved. But at that moment, he knew he would stay with his family. Amanda gave birth to 2 healthy boys at the expected time, whom she immediately named Marcus and Roger. The young woman did not even think that anyone would meet her at the hospital. After all, she hadn't seen or spoken to Martis for a long time. However, after being discharged, she was surprised to see her beloved at the exit, holding a bouquet of yellow roses. "You're here?" Amanda exclaimed. "Did you expect to see someone else?" "I didn't expect anyone at all." "Can I hold the babies?" "You won't drop them?" "You've probably forgotten that I am already a father and have a family. Did you come here just to remind me of them?" Amanda snapped angrily. At that moment, she wanted her beloved to leave, yet she was indescribably happy to see him. "Let's talk about everything at home," Martis replied and took the bundle with the baby. The couple headed to a car parked nearby. The man helped Amanda into the back seat, giving her the babies and the flowers. Martis got behind the wheel. They drove in silence. When they arrived at Amanda's apartment, the woman laid the sleeping infants on the couch, uncovered their faces, and called her chosen one. "Look, these are your 2 sons. They are just like you. By the way, I've already given them names. The one with the birthmark on his right cheek is Marcus. Notice, he got the birthmark from me. And the other baby is Roger. They are handsome children. You don't sound very happy. If you're not pleased with their birth, why did you come back into my life? I love you very much. I thought I could get you out of my mind and live as before. But I couldn't. I even told my wife about you. But she already knew about your existence. My wife is expecting a child." The man then recounted the entire conversation with Stacy. He did not hide anything, telling everything completely. Amanda realized that Martis would not leave his family, and she had to make a difficult choice, accept her beloved as he was, or remove him from her life. To accept meant to resign herself to the role of a mistress, the thought echoed in her head. But she could not live without this man. The time spent apart had been hell for her. Amanda recalled this period with a shudder. She had lived through it only because of the 2 babies she carried. The woman looked at the man, stroked his hair, and said, "I don't know how we will live from now on, but I can't live without you, and I don't want to. Sweetheart, I love you very much too. By the way, the names you chose are beautiful. Do you like them?" "I already told you my opinion," the man said as he hugged the woman and kissed her passionately. Amanda paused and looked at the investigator. Rick sat silently. He didn't know the end of the story, but he understood that soon everything would become clear about how the children ended up in the train car and who was responsible for it. He sincerely hoped that this essentially inexperienced woman in matters of love was not involved in leaving the infants on the train. The investigator's thoughts were interrupted by Amanda. "Can I have a glass of water, and I'll continue?" "Yes, of course." The young woman drank the water, twirled the glass in her hands, and set it on the table. Then she continued in a quiet voice. "You know, I love this man very much. He is the meaning of my life. But I also love the little ones. A girl will be. I had suspected for a long time that you had a woman on the side, but I thought you would get over it. However, you've gone too far in your relationship. You'll have to choose either us or that orphan girl. So, you knew everything? Martis did not expect that his wife had been aware of his affair. At that moment, he realized that even if he chose to stay with Stacy, his father-in-law would not leave Amanda and the children alone. He was completely sure that his wife had already informed her father about his escapades. And if she hadn't, she would definitely tell him. Martis sat down on a chair, exhausted. His thoughts drifted to how he would explain everything to his beloved. But at that moment, he knew he would stay with his family. A month after Marcus and Roger were born, time flew by unnoticed. Martis often came to see us, delighting me with gifts. He didn't promise the moon, but I saw that my beloved was doing everything possible to make us happy. It was evident even from the baby clothes he bought, onesies and rompers. You can only choose such things if you care about your children. Amanda, sorry to interrupt, but let's get to the point, Rick interjected. The investigator felt that she was trying to delay the unpleasant moment of discussing the disappearance of the children. Amanda sighed wearily and continued. She started talking about how everything changed a month after leaving the hospital. Martis became withdrawn and lost interest in his sons. The woman was worried about her beloved's behavior, so she asked him directly, "What's happening? You're not yourself. You're not interested in what's new with Marcus and Roger. I feel like you're becoming a stranger to us. You're imagining things. No, I've known you for years and can sense your mood perfectly. Please, tell me what's going on." Stacy gave birth to a daughter earlier than expected. She will be discharged soon, so we will see each other less often for a while. I need to support my wife. Why didn't you support me like that in the last months of my pregnancy? Amanda snapped angrily. Let's not start this conversation. You asked what was going on, and I told you. So, what do you suggest? Maybe you should stop coming to us altogether? Forget about our sons? Why are you so upset? Fine, I'll leave, and you can calm your hysterics in the meantime. With these words, Martis left the apartment. He was gone for 10 days. During that time, Amanda was frantic. She tried to call her beloved, but he didn't answer. The young woman was ready to go to his house, but didn't know the address. Her anxiety led to her milk drying up. Now she had a new concern, buying formula to feed the babies. Amanda forced herself to forget about the man and focus on the children. Martis reappeared after 10 days. He came in looking thoughtful, glanced at his sons, and then quietly asked Amanda, "How are you managing?" At that moment, the woman began to pour out everything that had been festering in her heart. She yelled that Martis was a traitor who didn't care about the children. Amanda knew she shouldn't behave like this now, but she couldn't help herself. She unleashed all her pent-up resentment, not holding back. She didn't think about what could happen at that moment. She just needed to release her emotions. Martis calmly observed her outburst, but then abruptly cut off the angry torrent. "Stop it. That's enough. I didn't come here for this. Of course, not for this. You don't care about us. I repeat, stop being hysterical. You're not a child, but the mother of our children. Oh, you remembered you have sons. Did you at least remember their names?" "Of course, I remember. Marcus and Roger," he said with a smile. Martis approached his beloved, pulled her close, and kissed her on the lips. Then he said, "We need to talk. The situation is too serious. What else could have happened? Are you calm now?" You can see I'm answering without shouting, the woman said more calmly, though internally she was torn by contradictions. She wanted to smash everything to vent her negativity, but at the same time, she saw that her beloved was seriously concerned about something. "I'm listening to you. I won't shout anymore. Just understand me too. It was hard without you. You didn't call, didn't answer my calls. I know you were worried, I'm sorry. Let's just talk. Basically, you need to leave the city." "Leave the city? Where? I have no one but you and the boys. This must be done. And very urgently." "But why?" Martis took the woman's hands in his, then kissed each palm, looked into her beloved eyes, and explained that his father-in-law knew about her. Amanda wanted to interrupt her lover's monologue, but he shook his head. He continued. "Stacy told Dylan everything about you and the children. She doesn't intend to share me with you. I already told you, my wife is a spoiled person. Initially, my wife didn't pay attention to our affair, thinking it was just a whim. But now, with the second child, her life principles have changed. Understand, I can't go against her. Everything is too serious. If she told her father, it means Stacy has taken extreme measures. So what can her father do to me? There's the state, the police." "Silly girl, what are you talking about? Understand. There is also big money that solves everything. And there are people who own this capital. Dylan is one of those people. He has enormous connections. He will do anything for Stacy. I just want you to be safe. I'm not going anywhere." Martis held his head in his hands. He knew he needed to convince his beloved to leave. The man was thinking intently while Amanda was mixing formula to feed the children. The woman silently glanced at her chosen one, wondering what he was thinking about at that moment. Martis suddenly stood up, approached Amanda, and spoke. "I already talked to Dylan about this. He himself suggested that you should leave. I don't even want to hear about it. If you're scared, just say so." "I'm scared, I won't hide it." "Let's leave together then, sell my apartment, and leave. Understand, I tried to resolve this situation. I told my father-in-law that I live with Stacy only because of the children. Dylan explained everything clearly to me. If I leave his daughter, then Then what?" "You didn't finish." The man abruptly moved away from Amanda, approached the children, took one son in his arms, and rocked him. Then he put the baby down and turned to the young woman who was looking at him questioningly, waiting for an answer to her question. Martis took a wallet out of his jeans pocket, slowly opened it, and took out 3 tickets, which he handed to Amanda with the words, "Look. What is this?" The woman unfolded the first ticket. It had her name on it. Then the second ticket, which was issued to Marcus. Amanda stared incomprehensibly at her lover. "What does this mean?" "The third ticket is for Roger. They don't need tickets, of course, since children up to 14 years old travel with their parents on one ticket. However, Dylan made sure you could travel comfortably." "How did he get my passport details?" "Did you give them? And the boys' names?" "I told you, there are influential people and connections. Now do you understand what can happen to me if I suddenly decide to get a divorce? He only knew your name, I won't hide that. The rest Dylan found out on his own. The children's names. Your details. My father-in-law even gave money for the road." With these words, the man took a hefty wad of money out of his wallet. Amanda grabbed the money and threw it into the air. She was at a loss for words from indignation and anger. At that moment, the child began to cry. The woman rushed to her son, took the baby, and started rocking him. Tears streamed down her face. "If you don't think about yourself or me, at least think about the children." "But how can I be alone in a foreign city?" "Without registration and without housing," Amanda uttered weakly. Martis was picking up the scattered bills. He collected the money into a stack, patted it against his palm, and said, "This money will be enough for the first time, and then we're not parting forever. I'll come to you after some time, we'll keep in touch. Understand, this is the only way out of our situation. I'm not happy about it, but circumstances are beyond us." "Do you even believe your own words?" "I believe it, and you must believe me and have no doubts. You will live in one city for a while, and then I will come for you, and we will move to another place so that we won't be found. Are you being honest?" "Of course, I am." After these words, the young woman sighed with relief. She understood that if her beloved person was wary of Dylan, then her father-in-law was truly an influential figure. Amanda was mentally exhausted after this conversation and could no longer think clearly. She assumed that the forced departure would be temporary. But afterward, she would have a complete family, with Martis by her side. "Amanda, and did you leave with the children after that?" the investigator asked. "A week later, I boarded the train with my sons. First, I took the children's medical records from the clinic to register them in another city. Martis saw us off on the train." "Did you have a compartment neighbor?" This is a very important question. "Yes, there was a woman on the upper berth." "Can you recognize her face?" "No, she was lying with her back to me on the upper berth." "Do you think she stole my little ones?" "You will find out soon. But now tell me, when did you notice your sons were missing?" "In the evening, I fed Marcus and Roger, lulled them to sleep, put them on the free berth, made a barrier so they wouldn't fall off due to the train's movement. I wasn't planning to sleep, but the last few days were too stressful, and I dozed off. I woke up only in the morning. I immediately went to the children, but they weren't there. Then I screamed. After that, everything happened in a blur." "Do you remember if your compartment neighbor was there at that moment?" "No, she wasn't." "Sit in the corridor for a while, and I'll find out how things are going with the conductor's questioning. I think we will know everything soon." They went out into the corridor. Amanda sat on a chair, and the investigator went into another office. The woman thought only about one thing, that soon she would be holding her little ones again. She was still horrified that someone had taken her sons. She couldn't comprehend it. Why would anyone steal babies? The investigator's voice distracted Amanda from her thoughts. "You are very lucky that the conductor is observant and quickly reacted. Tell me everything in order." The investigator sat down next to her and explained that the conductor saw a woman with 2 babies passing through his car. Then, when he went to the vestibule, he found the children on the floor and a shopping bag. He recognized the blanket in which the children were wrapped. The conductor immediately called the transport police, and on the spot, he identified the woman carrying the babies. The suspect has already been questioned, and she gave a full confession. The woman admitted that she boarded your car on purpose, but only in another city. She was hired by a certain Mr. Dillon. At the same time, the investigator mentioned Martis's surname. Amanda gasped. "I know this person. He is my beloved's father-in-law, whom I told you about." "But continue, tell me the main thing. Why did she do it?" "For money. She needed money for her son's treatment. Moreover, the woman owed a large sum to Dillon. So he offered her this deal. But why that person needed this is unknown. I think these questions will also soon be answered. So, It turns out that Dylan planned everything in advance, since he bought the tickets for me himself, then hired the unfortunate woman to steal my little ones and take them to another train. I feel sorry for that lady because she committed this crime only for her sick son. Now it's up to you to decide where you want to go. Home, or do you still want to hide? I have nothing to fear now because, most likely, Dylan will be prosecuted for this crime. Am I right? I think so, but I'm not a judge. Mommy, aren't you missing your little ones? Of course, but first I must thank the conductor. If it weren't for him, I don't even know what would have happened to me. Thank him. Here comes Jake. Amanda jumped up from her chair and embraced the approaching man. She cried uncontrollably, unable to utter a word. The conductor shifted awkwardly from foot to foot, fully understanding the feelings of a mother who had gotten her babies back. The investigator was immensely pleased. Amanda was not guilty in this matter. The next day, Amanda was already at home with her sons when Martis came in and announced from the doorway that he was there to stay. The man said, "My father-in-law will pay for this deed no matter what, even his money won't help." I asked him why he would take the children from their mother in such a vile way. And what did he say to that? He said that if our sons were gone, I wouldn't return to you. He wanted to sever the connection between us. And he considered Marcus and Roger that connection. But Dylan didn't consider one thing. What exactly? Amanda asked in bewilderment. How much I love the three of you, you and our sons. But I need your honest word that in the future you will give me a daughter as well. With these words, Martis approached his beloved woman and embraced her. He looked into Amanda's eyes with a long, tender gaze. She realized that from now on, they would be together and would never part again.